Soggy Cereal recently put out a video called The Truth About MrBeast and DogPack404, and it is a girthy boy. Over an hour and a half, he goes over and debunks a lot of the points and arguments made by Dogpack and makes points that he's been framing information or omitting certain points to make his arguments look better. By no means is this video going to be a Soggy Cereal sucks nuts and he's lame and stupid plus ratio or something like that, because I do think that he makes a few really good points. I do, however, think that there is a bit more nuance to this, and I don't really like this. If you're on like Dogpack's side, you're going to be saying that this is all, you know, this conspiracy that he's working with Jimmy, trying to destroy Dogpack's like credibility and sweep for Jimmy, because he doesn't. But I also think the other side of this, of Dogpack's reputation being absolutely ruined and all credibility going to the wayside, meaning that Jimmy is somehow absolved of everything that he's done. Even in this hour and a half, he doesn't fully cover all of the things that are brought against MrBeast, and also makes light of the fact that CoffeeZilla made a bomb-ass video talking about some of his crypto shenanigans. There's also a more personal point to me, as it involves my friend Cam Nuggets, who you guys probably know on YouTube, and I want to address that as well, but it is a good point to note that Soggy did end up removing the clip that I'm going to be showing you guys from his video. But with all that being said, please give this video a thumbs up. Please, please, I'm begging you, please, it'd be really cool, and consider subscribing if you're new and enjoy this. Regardless of if you do either of those things, as I'm begging you to do, I'm just glad you're here watching this. For the sake of keeping this clean, as this is a lot to go over, I'm just going to go over in order from Soggy's video and talk about the points that he's made. The first and major one about this is talking about Delaware. Now, a big part of the drama that surrounded that was his name Delaware, and he showcases the clip where Jake is talking about how he thinks that that name was spread around the office space.
When I was there, they called him Delaware. He's like, why do you call him Delaware? I didn't know. Apparently they called him Delaware because he's not allowed to go back to Delaware. That's his nickname? Colloquially? Like, you know, yeah, it's Delaware. Don't ask him why, you know? You know that he knew, and because he'll be in videos, and whenever he is, he's wearing a mask.
The real story is much more boring.
So he brings up two main points here, one of which I've been wrong about for quite some time, which is that Delaware's name came from before he worked at MrBeast. As Soggy shows later on in the video, you can see him wearing his Best Buy, you know, manager shirt, which has Delaware embroidered on it, which means that this has been a nickname of his since before he was working at MrBeast. And again, I was wrong about that. I didn't do my good research. I'm brand new to this. It's not an excuse. I was lazy. I didn't do my own research. I was just covering what had come out. Now, the other point that he makes that I'm just a bit more questionable about actually comes from Dustin, one of the current employees at MrBeast. This has to do with whether or not Jimmy knew that Delaware was a RSO at the time that he had been hired. As we can see here from a message that Dustin had sent to Soggy, as far as Delaware goes, he was just a local Best Buy manager Jimmy found. The company was growing really quickly, and it was just Jimmy and 2 or 3 other friends, so he went to Best Buy and hired like 3 people. One of them was named Delaware. Best Buy called him that. We didn't make it up, as you saw embroidered on the shirt. I guess Jimmy figured if Best Buy thought he was good enough to manage a giant store, then he was probably good enough to run a YouTube channel, which was dumb, but Jimmy was like 18 at the time, so not surprising. We do background checks now and have a super in-depth hiring process. People tend to think of the giant company we are now when they hear that story, but it wasn't a 300-person company then. It was like 5 guys buying a car with pennies on the weekend. Now, the issue that I have with that is it doesn't really connect or make sense with what we've learned previously. The first record of talking about Delaware getting hired on actually comes from 2 interviews, one being with Jake the Viking, who we've talked about before on this channel, but also from Matt Turner's interview on the H3 YouTube channel, podcast, whatever it is, where Jake first makes mention of the fact that he got hired on after the original manager, who Delaware took the place of, got into a bit of an altercation, and Matt Turner goes on and fleshes out what had happened.
Real quick, so for people that might not know, just a quick version, how did you even get connected with MrBeast and the MrBeast channel?
Brother-in-law got hired as their manager.
Interesting.
He was the sales manager at the Best Buy in Greenville. And then when Jimmy started blowing up, Chris worked at Best Buy with my brother-in-law, so they already had a relationship there. And then when Jimmy started blowing up on YouTube, he was going to Best Buy to get supplies. And so then every time I would go there, my brother-in-law would take care of him, try to give him the best deals he could, because obviously it's like, oh, this is a big-time YouTuber. I want to be in with that. Mm-hmm. And then when they had to fire their manager for an altercation that took place on a boat, I think it was like the Fortnite in the middle of the ocean video.
And so a funny antidote I had was, no one has ever said this, and it's why Delaware actually needed to come in. It was because at the time, the first manager that ever worked there, his name was Dan. Sorry, Dan. And he was actually a really good guy, but everyone was consistently making these jokes wildly inappropriate about his like 5-year-old kid. Like, gonna go home and fuck insert name. Like
What?
the craziest thing.
Who was saying that?
I know. Well, Ava, Jimmy, it was like the thing. It was like funny edgelord kids, which is crazy. They would
Having
make these like
sex with
crazy
his
jokes, and
child.
one day we were filming the video playing Fortnite in the middle of the ocean, and one too many jokes got said, and bro flipped. Like, understandably, he couldn't take it anymore, and he took a cameraman and he threw him into the water, and it was a whole big problem. And so then the next day, he was fired. Delaware came in a week later.
Now, in tandem with the two clips that I just showed you, we also have the, I think very well known at this point, tweet from Jake the Viking talking about and including this particular segment. Before being hired, Delaware sat down with Jimmy and Sue, Jimmy's mom, and explained to them everything. So yes, Jimmy knew. Even Dustin actually made a comment where he couldn't confirm, saying, I don't think Jimmy or his mom knew when they hired him. I really don't think Sue would knowingly let Jimmy hire an RSO when he was barely 18. Viking said they knew, but even Weddle has a problem with what he says, so I don't know how valid that is. So Dustin himself can't even confirm it and just points to Weddle having an issue with Jake being honest or not as being the counterpoint to that being true or not, which isn't a bad point to be made. It's just not confirming or denying with certainty that Jimmy did know. So here I'm gonna let you guys decide and just showcase you the two different perspectives that I see on this. Number one, we go down the route that Dustin is providing to us and saying that in actuality, MrBeast had just walked into that Best Buy and just hired him on the spot because, you know, the previous manager was fired and hey, let's stick this other manager in that place because he's running the Best Buy. Jimmy is, you know, a kid at the time and doesn't know any better and just sticks him on not knowing about his background. We take what Jake the Viking said with a grain of salt, as we already have taken other points that he's made with a grain of salt from the trash drama that had happened on the mountain with Jake Weddle, and that's it. Jimmy is, you know, an idiot who needs to take accountability for having done it in the first place regardless, but we understand that he made mistakes because he was young and naive. The other side of this that I see is that Dustin, along with the other individuals who are currently working at the MrBeast company, are firmly aware of what they're saying and how that's going to impact the company and likely their livelihood, and realistically have either talked to Jimmy about, you know, doing interviews or worked with the crisis management PR team that they're working with and have explained things in a way that may not be particularly untruthful, but don't actually give the full breadth of the situation or choose to omit the fact that potentially Jimmy and his mom both knew that Delaware was an RSO. I think out of anyone, Delaware's brother-in-law, that being Jake the Viking, would probably be told by Delaware or Jimmy that this conversation did happen and they still brought him on regardless. Again, I think both those arguments are valid and I'm just leaving that up to you guys to decide. Now, another big point that he makes in this video talking about Delaware is this other individual that had been recorded without his consent talking, as he puts it, water cooler talk in regard to Delaware, Jimmy, and some kind of other stuff that had happened. He goes on to talk about how he's had a financial loss, he's lost some friends from it, and that it wasn't, you know, consensual. It ended up being figured out who it was because it wasn't done very well or discreetly. Now, I think the reason that DogPack put that in the video has to do with the full context, if we look back to it, as to why he included this audio.
Okay, so finally I have a recorded phone conversation. The person on the other end of this line is a different former MrBeast employee talking about Delaware. Also, apparently before this phone conversation got recorded, the person on the other end of the line said that the MrBeast team was actually trying to expunge Delaware's record off the registry, and that's what actually like sparked this person to start recording.
So going off the full context of that clip, DogPack felt it necessary to include this because that person was giving information like what he had said before it was being recorded, that they were trying to expunge Delaware's record to get that taken care of. And that's why this person had sent in the clip of the person they were talking to, because he felt that it would be important to talk about and kind of also prove DogPack's point that Jimmy knew about Delaware being an RSO. I don't think it's good that it was such a shitty voice changer that people were able to identify who it was and that person ended up suffering consequences because of that fact. I just want us to remember the full context of that clip specifically and why DogPack had included it in the video in the first place. I also think that, this person who was, unknowingly recorded for it, just chalking up what he had been talking about to just cooler talk, specifically with what he ends up saying in that recorded call, just seems like a backtrack because, again, he did lose quite a few friends because this information got out. And I think it would make the most sense for him, especially with the friends that he has at the company, that he would backtrack and try to delegitimize any of the points that he made. But again, it could be true. I just think that both sides of that seem to have credibility in my mind. I'm not just trying to completely discredit Soggy with what I'm saying, and I want to include a point that he makes, which is very useful in talking about that he's also being critical of MrBeast.
19-year-old MrBeast didn't do background checks. Was that stupid? Yes. Is Delaware a piece of shit? Yes. Should Jimmy take responsibility for making that mistake? Yes.
I just want to show that because, again, I don't want this coming off as just completely being critical of Soggy and trying to act like he doesn't make good points.
That'd be as shameless as falsely accusing someone of committing war crimes against the Geneva Convention in a consented to solitary confinement challenge where you'd earn $10,000 a day and can quit whenever you want and still keep the accumulated prize money up until that point.
I go up to my friend, my good friend. He goes, "What? That's a war crime. We're not allowed to do that to terrorists." Oh, good. 24 hours breaking the Geneva Convention, I guess, is what we're doing.
Let's ask Dustin about that, because ironically enough, Dustin is the good friend of Jake Weddle, who made those war crime comments. The war crime stuff was 100% a joke. I'm now a producer, but I was originally hired as comedy writer with Jake Weddle, so I just wanted to cheer him up with a dumb and edgy joke. So it was a joke. That makes sense, because in a follow-up video of Jake Weddle's and DogPack's interview, Jake Weddle seems to slip up, saying it was a joke.
He's the same guy who did the war crime joke,
Before quickly correcting himself.
which turned out to not be a joke.
And his videos are pretty unedited, so he might have just accidentally let it slip through the cracks.
So we know that Dustin had said this as a joke to Jake. And Soggy makes the point that he thinks that Jake slipped up when he was talking about how he said, well, he made this war crime joke, which ended up not being a joke, as you saw in the clip that he included. He says this was a slip up, but I don't really see that interpretation of what he was saying. To me, it comes off as Dustin said it as a joke, but when it was looked up, it was, comparative to what they were talking about in the Geneva Convention. Now, I've already covered my point of view in regard to that whole isolation kind of incident. And my thoughts are that there is a lot of pressures at play when you're being offered that kind of money, that kind of life-changing money, that it's going to make you do things that if you were of right mind and didn't have those influences, you wouldn't make those choices and put yourself in that position. Jake was misled about the difficulty of the task at hand, of the challenge. And again, I've already talked about this. I'm not going to dive into it, but I just don't necessarily see eye to eye with, I would say, a large group of people in regard to Jake doing that challenge and whether or not he could have just walked out at any time. But I do think that there's a bit of framing going on in regard to Jake slipping up about it being a joke, that he's trying to be, malicious in this way, when I just don't see it that way. It doesn't seem like he was covering it up or having some kind of like Freudian slip, hiding the fact that he knew it was a joke. I just think that he looked into it and was like, oh, it's also kind of not a joke for him. On to Soggy's next point, he talks about how it looks like DogPack had actually framed one of the YouTube videos in regard to the illegal lotteries because he didn't actually find the original through the Wayback Machine.
I'm the first one who noticed. See, for the third illegal lottery, buy sure to be in a video live stream, DogPack claims they only informed people on the website that no purchase was necessary. But did you read the description? You know, the description which I got via the Wayback Machine, where it literally says free entry available on site? Oh, but wait, you never actually found the description of that video, did you? You just made it look that way by doctoring up this fake YouTube UI. So you'd be more convincing and it'd look as if you had access to the original video and description. But I want you, the viewer, to closely compare these two layouts. This one is the UI when he talks about the buy a shirt to be in my video live stream, and this one is the actual current YouTube UI you see whenever DogPack shows a screen recording of public videos you can still watch.
I think Sagi makes a great point here that does appear to be what happened. Through whatever reason, DogPack did not have the original video, and so he set it up to look like it was. And on top of that, Sagi also makes the point that during this stream, MrBeast does say that there is free entry on the site during the stream.
Funniest part is that MrBeast verbally says it on stream.
Go shopmrbeast.com, buy the shirt or hoodie. You can be one of the people that come down and compete in the video. There's also a free entry on the site as well. If you just 100 of which are going to be picked from you know, people that buy this shirt or hoodie, or if you enter for free on the site as well, that's an option as well.
So in regard to this point, I mean, I don't have more information than what Sagi has provided and also the DogPack video, so I think he does make a really sound point here. The next point he talks about is kind of a variety of things that he goes into debunking, like the dog food thing where, you know, DogPack says he doesn't know if that got resolved and the Reddit post in regard to it was deleted, and Sagi brings up that it was resolved, which is why the Reddit post got deleted, and the original, you know, author of it reached out to say that yes, it was resolved. The email that he received just went to his spam folder, so it all got kind of figured out. I don't necessarily agree with this being a huge issue because Dawson just says he doesn't know if it got resolved. It got sent to the PR team and then Reddit post was deleted. So, I mean, at that point, he just might not have seen the resolution from the guy that had made the original post. He also covers the chocolate bar comparison with the Hershey's one to the MrBeast bars, as well as the pit not being fake. And then on top of that, one of the more notable ones where he says that the car is lifted in the video where it showcases that blue car going across. I'll show you the clip.
This car is digitally lifted.
This car isn't digitally lifted, however, they did change the original red coloring to blue to make a visual distinction between the first rocket car they launched and failed, which was red, and the second one they launched, which succeeded, but was also red. Because they were scared that both cars being red might confuse the audience, so in post, they just changed the second one's color to blue, but there was no digital lift.
Now, altogether, I think that Sagi made some excellent points here, and I agree with all of them. He's able to prove with speaking with some people that the pit was indeed dug where it was, that the car wasn't lifted, that, you know, the chocolate bar misrepresentation, all of those things. I agree 100%. My biggest thing is that DogPack has been able to really, you know, get everyone to look at the company with a magnifying glass. I just think recognizing when you screw up as a journalist or you screw up in the research or you just don't take the time to do it, that itself is very different than maliciously, you know, master planning this way to screw over a former employer. The next point that he gets into, which I don't really think I need to like go really in depth about, is the cheese pizza allegations where, you know, Rosanna Pansino and DogPack had put out that video. I've already kind of gone over that, covering that I don't think that that was necessarily a very good idea, and I had a live stream with Nicholas Dorio where we kind of really discussed that. DogPack made a lot of mistakes, kind of, you know, walked back and forth about what he had done with the images in terms of censoring them or, you know, doing a back image search for trying to find any of it. I think that's been pretty much clarified, and again, a very huge misstep, and including that in the thumbnail. At the time where people thought it was actually cheese pizza, including DogPack and whatnot, it should not have been a thumbnail. And I am also guilty of doing that. I did that too. I was too quick to it. I was just trying to get like a lot of engagement. I am guilty of the same thing, and I'm not gonna act like I'm some sort of saint that doesn't make mistakes. I do think that they should have taken their time and done some research. It's a bit tough, being that, you know, it was found almost immediately after that it was indeed not cheese pizza, and the photo that was taken was indeed of an 18-year-old, but it's just kind of that tough spot of, okay, well, it was found so quickly after it had eyes on it, or it was so quickly found because it was easily findable. But let's move on to the next point. That being the notorious potentially fake eye wink.
He tried using contestant 58 from the ages 1 to 100 video by claiming that he didn't really wink.
In this video, this wink was added in post.
And that number 58 didn't hear number 42 getting out of the booth.
In fact, 58 was actually on the far opposite side of the room from 42, and he just didn't hear him.
And because of that, number 58, a 58-year-old man, was so confused and getting harassed online to the point he felt that he had to make a TikTok about it.
Hey guys, Mr. 58. Been a while since I posted anything, but something's really been concerning me a little bit. I've been seeing things on the internet that have said I didn't wink in the MrBeast video 1 to 100. I did wink. I winked a few times, as a matter of fact. The other thing that's been said is I didn't hear 42 say he was stepping out of his cube. Yes, I heard 42 say he was stepping out of his cube. I did it on my own accord to step out with 2 seconds left on the clock. I know of nothing in that video that was staged whatsoever, and I don't know why these rumors are going over the internet that these things didn't happen. Everything that I did in that video, and nothing was edited after the fact.
So he makes this point, which seems to effectively clear up what had been said about it. It wasn't actually just added in post, it was just a wink. Now again, I think another great point brought up, but I did want to also bring attention to something that he had taken, which was this screenshot of a message DogPack had sent him, with DogPack saying this meeting was run by Mac, it was for ages 1 to 100. First cut didn't have the revenge storyline. Mac said he could add the wink in post by turning a wink into a blink. Sagi is more so focused on this stuff, which I'm not really talking about, but I think just the fact that DogPack is talking about that, hey, Mac was talking about doing it, I think that that is most likely what fueled him into making the assumption he did. He did talk about it like it was just a complete truth, which, you know, ends up being the issue because we get into the framing. But I don't think, like what I was talking about before in terms of trying to find if he was doing this maliciously and on purpose, I'm not finding that more than I'm finding him making an assumption based off of what he had heard when he was a part of this, you know, conversation, was watching the preview of the video. I don't really think it's much of a stretch for him to make that assumption based off of what he had heard Mac talk about in regard to changing, you know, a blink to a wink or a wink to a blink or whatever. That is a tongue twister. The next point he makes, he goes into talking about the fact that DogPack has made the claim that if you're a subscriber, there is no chance that you're ever going to show up as being a random subscriber on the channel, which when you're talking about those superlatives, that's untrue because there are proven people who were just completely random subscribers that had won a butt ton of money.
I don't get it. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel.
All you have to do to enter to win one of these phones is subscribe.
It's a scam. Holy shit.
The Samsung giveaway was legit. Here you can see old testimonies from random subscribers who won and got contacted by MrBeast. Now, DogPack, something you really shouldn't say because it would make you look real dumb, is either...
He mentioned the fact that he is not a professional journalist or investigator, just a guy throwing allegations around for other people to properly investigate.
As you did in a desperate attempt to save the little credibility you had left after falsely accusing someone of domestic violence and kicking their dog in your third video. Because this is what you said in your first video, which I'm also disproving.
And I don't want to put a lot of like hearsay into this video. You should just believe the receipts that I'm showing you and not what I'm saying.
Now, the next point that he's going on to is talking about how DogPack, you know, framing these kinds of things, going for that, you know, plausible deniability since, you know, he's worried about, you know, court being involved, etc. He's being a bit of a hypocrite talking about Jimmy doing the same thing and using that same method to avoid stuff. For sure, absolutely. Again, I don't think it completely just discredits the ones that haven't necessarily been, you know, debunked through this video. The thing that I want to focus on more here is just in particular what Sagi has to say during this, which I think is a very important point to have been made.
A little plausible deniability.
Also, me disproving cheap attempts at slander from this guy doesn't mean I'm defending this guy. I know a lot of people believe in the delusion that defending MrBeast is the safe option. I know there's people have been living under a rock lately, but defending MrBeast right now is actual career suicide. While regurgitating DogPack's lies is the easy and safe way to generate millions of views and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But in my opinion, blindly taking either side should be heavily frowned upon because there are some very questionable and fucked up decisions MrBeast has made that he needs to be held accountable for.
I agree absolutely, and I really appreciate that Sagi comes around towards the end again to make those points and be critical and reference, you know, CoffeeZilla's video that he had just put out about MrBeast, because he's right. I'm here solely because of the MrBeast drama, and for the most part solely because I have been hypercritical of the MrBeast company and what's gone on. I haven't been as critical about DogPack, and to be fair to that point, I haven't done nearly the amount of research that Sagi had, him taking 3 months going into detail and looking through all of DogPack's content with a fine-tooth comb. Again, just to reiterate, I don't think that DogPack is some malicious mastermind that's doing all this. I do think, however, he was never this perfect journalist researcher that, you know, he kind of came off to be when we hadn't done any of the research on him. And over the course of his videos coming out and the other videos he's put out with other content creators like Rosanna, we've started to see those cracks. He has made mistakes that are much more noticeable and much bigger than what he had started with at the beginning. And I think a lot of these points also flew under the radar because he kind of opened up the Pandora's box of, you know, looking into the company and finding all these mistakes that have been made along the way. Sagi himself had put into a thread, which we're going to talk about later in this video. Sagi writes this, and we'll get into more of the context later. He goes, which I hate because if there's one good thing that came out of DogPack's videos, It's that it removed Jimmy's golden boy / Boy Scout shield that had been protecting him from criticism for years, a shield that no one should have in the first place. I think that's the biggest thing. He got rid of this shield and all of the criticism and, hyperfixation moved onto the company as opposed to DogPack, because there were in a lot of people's eyes, bigger fish to fry. So yes, a subpar YouTube investigator, but his action ended up opening the company to criticism and putting enough attention on the company that these kinds of criticisms would actually start to develop traction. The ones that weren't credible ended up falling to the wayside, like for instance the James Warren accusations, and ones that have stuck, like the crypto information or, the eye surgeries not being taken care of until, attention was brought to it, things like that, have stuck around. On to the next point, which that being Dawson's firing interview kind of thing, where Soggy was given the recordings of DogPack getting fired and talking with LaCoya Hill as LaCoya Hill is telling him, "You're done." Dawson's begging for his job back. And then in tandem with this, also from the interviews that he does later on in the video, it's made very clear that Dawson was not a great time to work with. I think this ends up just being more of a reputational attack or trying to frame it that he was just this disgruntled ex-employee, or that he just wasn't there long enough to know what he did. But clearly he did know enough stuff, or at least communicated with people enough that people did come forward and talk about what was going on with him. So I don't really find a use in covering it myself. Again, you can just go check out Soggy's video. There are timestamps on the video if you want to go and see the specific part. He also makes point of the moon scam, where they were going to send a bunch of memes on a hard drive to the moon with a rocket, but that rocket ended up blowing up. He makes this point talking about how Dawson had a video showing like this really dinky rocket that ended up exploding versus the actual rocket that was used, which still blew up.
3 years later, the spaceship finally launched, carrying beautiful pictures of deceased loved ones to the moon, where they would be immortalized. It fucking exploded.
Side note here, DogPack also uses another very manipulative tactic where he shows this stinky, dinky scrap metal rocket instantly exploding, which made people believe that MrBeast was really trying to nickel and dime this entire space mission, while in reality the actual spacecraft carrying the hard drive was a high-quality Vulcan Centaur rocket made in collaboration with NASA as well as the ULA.
Vulcan rocket, launching a new era in spaceflight to the moon and beyond.
In all honesty, I think he was just showing that footage to be funny and be satirical, but I understand Soggy's point of view. I just don't necessarily see eye to eye on it. Editor Connor jumping in to say that this bit here seems a bit smaller than the rest of them, and that's just because I had originally thought that they still hadn't refunded those people, but Soggy, when I went to look back, did include this part where someone was showcasing the fact that they were receiving a refund from this moon thing. So I just wanted to jump in to include that part because I want you guys to understand why this bit was so small. But yeah, glad people are getting refunds. Here is another part specifically that I just did not seem to have covered, so I apologize on that. But talking about the Feastables chocolate thing, I had also made this fuck up where I thought that what DogPack was saying had some sort of legitimacy and I didn't do my research. So I'm in agreement with Soggy Cereal here. He makes really good points and shows why they had removed that from their labeling on their website. And yeah, I agree with them. And again, I'm sorry for not doing a full piece of this myself. Next up, he starts talking about the text messages. More specifically, he debunks the 100 boys versus 100 girls one, where they had said that they think the results were pretty much rigged, which ended up not being completely true because as Soggy shows, there were some girls eliminated, which you can see in the video. Now, I agree with that point specifically about that video, but in regard to the messages coming through, DogPack repeatedly says, hey, these are text messages that I personally verified, but take them with that in mind, which for me means that yes, these are just stories and anecdotes from people at the company, and that's going to give it a bit more credibility than people who aren't there, but they are again just people talking about the thing, which ended up being the same case with James Warren and the DV charges. It was a joke because people weren't super fond of him, but it ended up just being what those people had been saying and rumors and stuff that had come out from that. Again, this is something that I've, discussed about, and there's one side and the other in regard to it, and I'll leave that up to you guys. My own perspective on it is just that I think we all should have been taking those text messages as they were at face value of just people in the company sharing their personal experience / stories / what they have heard. Soggy also points out this fact that, well, if they were trying to hide during the 100 girls versus 100 boys video, that there were a lot of different faces of people that had been working at the company, including Jimmy's at the time girlfriend. Now, it wasn't like they were very discreetly hiding this information because, she talks about this in a podcast, But the point that I had made at that time, the odds of the general audience that had watched that video in particular being younger, the odds of them watching a podcast talking about this stuff just didn't really seem to make sense. So the people that were watching weren't really going to be under that assumption. Regardless of the reasoning why, that being that a lot of the girls had come down with COVID, I still think that being transparent about that in the video would have been important. Now on to the raft out in the middle of the ocean where they weren't showing up on the raft at one point in the video.
The team forced the MrBeast crew off of their raft in the 7 Days Stranded at Sea video for about an hour because of this dangerous lightning storm. Wait, what was it you said again?
You can clearly see there's no one in the shelter. These are their empty beds. But you didn't spend the night soaked, Jimmy. You slept on the production yacht.
Oh yeah. You lied about them allegedly sleeping on a luxurious production yacht. No, they were forced to stay on a rusty barge for about an hour for their own safety and went back on their raft as soon as a life-threatening lightning storm passed. And here is video proof from the rusty barge. Wow, what a luxurious yacht! Now you can still argue about the fact that they went off of the raft, but I don't think it's faking a challenge when you're forced by your safety team to leave your raft once to get on a rusty barge for about an hour to sit out a life-threatening lightning storm to then get back on the raft as soon as possible. It's making sure people don't die.
Now I agree that safety is an absolute concern, but I think I also am leaning into the fact that being transparent about that I think would have been important, and I think that people would have understood it, and if they didn't, that's how the challenge goes. Additionally, I'm just curious like how much safer a giant metal barge would be compared to the raft in such a lightning storm if they're all just kind of standing outside anyway. But they could have moved further away from the storm, or the contestants could have been inside, but I think again, with it being like a life-threatening storm, I think they all should have been indoors at the very least. And I agree with Sagi that yes, it wasn't a production yacht very clearly, but we don't see the insides, and of course the outside isn't going to be beautiful, but it's certainly not a yacht. Sagi then talks about this video idea that MrBeast had where he talked about people being in a bunch of circles and how that never came to be. And Sagi was actually able to get an interview with one of the individuals that were in those, but those videos didn't actually end up happening due to COVID canceling 2 separate attempts at them trying to do this contest.
Elaborate scheme to force more people to buy shirts, and then they'd run away with a profit.
We're gonna have 24 people, we're gonna put them in 24 different circles, $1 million on the line, have some fun, you know what I'm saying?
Also, this video never happened. There is no MrBeast video of 24 people in circles competing for $1 million. So like, did they just pocket the money or what?
Well, again, it was because of peak COVID. And this time, I'll let the contestants who took part in that 24 people in the circle for $1 million challenge explain what happened.
So this is one of those gentlemen, and he goes on to say that each individual on the first recording ended up getting to walk home with 10K. And then at the second attempt at recording it, they had to cancel again because one of the workers ended up getting COVID. And so they split the $1 million evenly between the 24 contestants, apologizing for the inconvenience. Also to note that they were all put up into hotel rooms the entire time that they were being quarantined. The first time being 2 weeks, and then the second time, I believe, being 5 days, something like that. Again, you can check out the interview on Sagi's channel. With what DogPack has, been framing the video centered around, I don't think, again, it's a crazy stretch for him to be like, hey, like what's going on? No video ended up coming out. They didn't come forward with that, which why would they? But again, I don't think it's like DogPack had some insider knowledge or, knew that any of these people would be able to talk about it. How would he know who to contact since they never covered it? And it just is chalked up to that was what was already fitting the narrative that he had set up in his mind. And I think it just made more logical sense to DogPack based off of all of the other information he had, brought up and the conclusions he had made, that it could have been that the company had just pocketed it. Next up, Sagi's talking about the illegal lottery 2, which in that regard, one of Chandler's cousins had actually won. And DogPack made the point that in this sweepstake, any family members of these people winning was illegal. But Sagi points out that when we're talking about those sweepstakes, only immediate family members are excluded from legally being able to win, which cousins are not considered immediate family.
Chandler's cousin, unless if specified in the rules of that specific giveaway. And your snippet isn't from those rules. It's from some lawyer's equivalent to Stack Overflow.
The next thing, which I have a bigger disagreement with, has to do with the signatures that were being done by not Jimmy, but other people working at the company.
So here's a clip of Tyler using MrBeast's signature. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I think this is fraud.
Maybe ask your immediate lawyer Next time, it's completely legal and fine to use someone else's signature if they gave you formal consent to do so, and it doesn't devalue the signature.
Now, in regard to this, yes, it's not like forging the signature because Jimmy would have given them the green light to do that, but Jimmy not actually doing the signature would, I'm pretty sure, devalue it. Although Soggy could have been saying that it doesn't devalue the signature to have someone else do it if they give the green light to it. So again, that's also just interpretation of what Soggy said. But in regard to it not being fraud, I don't necessarily agree with that. As a matter of fact, if we go to the DOJ's government website, when talking about fraud, the Fourth Circuit reviewing a conviction under 18 blah 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 also noted that fraud is a broad term which includes false representations, dishonesty, and deceit. Now, I don't believe, or at least from what I've seen, Soggy does not bring up the fact that they disclose at any point that anyone else is doing those signatures other than Jimmy. And that is the only point where anyone, I guess, kind of slips up on doing the signature in front of the camera. So I think it could be argued that when we're talking about false representation, dishonesty, or deceit, it could fall under that category since it wasn't explicitly known to anyone outside of this one specific incident where he drew the signature for Jimmy, that the people that are buying these shirts would know that he wasn't the one doing the signatures. Next up, he's talking about the second illegal lottery, which I think Soggy just makes the point that I agree with, so I'm just gonna let that play.
Months later, MrBeast signed shirts again, but this time it was a 24-hour live stream with way more illegal lotteries.
Nope. MrBeast had no purchase necessary in the description, and even though they did say things like,
Would you guys prefer that we throw money in random orders or that we throw items in random orders? Yeah.
Somebody screamed in chat, I want to switch. Hey, buy a shirt.
If they ended up picking out of both free and paid entries for those giveaways behind the scenes, which there is no reason to believe they didn't, well, then that is legal in live streams. However, I do agree that it's very scummy and manipulative advertising in my opinion.
So lastly, and I think most importantly, we had these conversations and interviews that Soggy had with 4 different members of the MrBeast team that are current employees there. These in order of appearance being Dustin, a producer at MrBeast, then Emily on the ideation team, who was one of DogPack's direct co-workers at the time, Hoodie, who was DogPack's manager at the time he was working there, and lastly, Kara, who is the hiring manager at the MrBeast company. Now, they all go into their own, specific stories talking about, him not really being the most pleasant to work with, more specifically being Emily, the coworker, and Hoodie being his manager. But Kara also goes on to talk about the no does not mean no part of the employee handbook, as she's the one who co-wrote that alongside Jimmy. A part that I specifically wanted to go over was when Soggy was talking about the incident that Lakoya had with their assistant and what the company ended up doing as a result.
From him towards his assistant, there are some allegations out there, but nothing concrete so far. And can you tell me a bit about what really went on with Lakoya Hill?
Yeah, so just to kind of give you background on when someone reports something to HR, which would have been me at the time because it was years ago. Yeah. Whenever somebody reports it, I go, hey, okay, thank you, I appreciate it. We're gonna make sure that we do everything we can to look into it. Then we always hire a third party company, either a lawyer or someone that's not here to prove one person right or wrong, but a true unbiased party. And so then everybody talks to them, the person, his assistant would have talked to them, Lakoya would have talked to them, and any person that they named as witnesses or potential proof of text messages, pictures, anything this company would have dealt with. And then they write a report and then they go, hey, here's what you should do, right? And so that's what they do. And then internally what we do is okay, the assistant, what do you want to happen, right? If it's this, if it's that, obviously if it's found he's gone, that's not okay in any workplace, If
it's confirmed that there is something,
of course, we're not gonna hang on to that, right? And so, and he's I don't necessarily want him to be fired, but I don't want to be around him, I don't want to see him, it's just really uncomfortable for me, So we're okay, great. So I actually worked with him to come up with a list of jobs that he wanted, because again, if the person who he's assisting is not here, it's okay, well, now what's your job? So it was we came up with everything he was interested in, what he wanted to do and stuff like that, and move him into a different role. And we said, hey, you won't have to see Lakoya again. We're gonna move him completely out. It wasn't a secret. We moved him to a new company idea that we had. He was the only person in that company. He wasn't even on site. He wasn't working in the building. He wasn't anything like that. We just said, hey, we think this is a cool idea. Go figure it out. And so he went on his own to go figure that out. And then the assistant worked with us for a long time, and then when he wasn't here anymore, I think it was almost a year after the assistant like had chosen to do whatever he wanted to do, then we were like, okay, we'll bring LaQuoya back to help, because at this point there's no conflict anymore. So that's really what it was. Like, it was no, oh, we're gonna go hide LaQuoya over here, and like, I mean, even now LaQuoya doesn't work for us anymore.
If the result of whatever investigation they had done internally resulted in that assistant getting to choose if LaQuoya is going to be around him or not and them sending him off, it feels like if it was that serious, then they probably should have just fired LaQuoya. So I guess I'm a bit confused as where they end up justifying that whatever incident took place was grounds enough to, separate them, insofar as sending LaQuoya off to work at a different company under them. If it was that serious, why didn't they just fire him? Now, there is a lot in these interviews of them talking about their personal work experiences, like Emily calling the chef who would make prepared meals, and him telling them that DogPack had said that the food was shit. He just, again, wasn't fun to work with. I'm not here to dispute that. I can't, talk about their work experiences with him. And I don't think anyone has ever attempted to defend that DogPack has been a blast to work with. This is completely new information. I just don't really have anything to add. So again, check out his video if you want to see. But something that I do want to focus on and just bring to your guys' attention is something that Hoodie makes a point of towards the end of Sagi's interview section in his video.
We're doing a video where we're trying to help people walking.
Yeah, I know about that. Yeah.
Actively, partners have pulled out because of these videos. There are people who will not walk or will have to delay in them walking because of the videos that DogPack made.
Partners have actively pulled out from working with the company because of what has come out. The reason that I think this point is important is because all of the people in these interviews are currently working at MrBeast. Sagi says in the video that these people came on their own volition to have these conversations with Sagi. This very well could be true, and I don't think that Sagi doesn't believe that himself, and I'm not trying to make this claim that he's working in bad faith. I don't think that. I do, however, just want to bring to your guys' attention another point of view, which is that if this company is working with one of the best crisis management PR teams in the world, then they have a vested interest in these 4 individuals going on and trying to completely destroy DogPack's reputation, as well as make the company look better and make them look like they are the victim in this situation. I don't really think that that's a stretch. I don't think it's a stretch that these employees either had talked to Jimmy or had some talks with this PR team before they came on and had these conversations. I can't speak for the integrity of these individuals, and knowing that they currently work there, there is a conflict there. And I think acknowledging that is important, but I can't say for certain if it's one way or the other. I just know that when I was watching this and going through this, that was something that was tugging at me internally. But again, I'm leaving that choice up to you guys. Personally, I think it's kind of muddled the waters for me, and a lot of the attention that they've brought up with these 4 has been his interactions with them, which again has been negative, but doesn't take away from the points that are sticking on the company. Last thing, I just want to showcase it in the video because I think it's important, is what Sagi says towards the end of the video.
But there's one more thing I have to clarify for everyone, and that is the illegal lottery number 1, which on my flight back, I finally found some proof that the first illegal lottery was in fact illegal. There was no purchase necessary in the description, no mention of it at all. Yeah, it was illegal. And personally, Jimmy has to own up for it. Either by donating the amount of profit he made in that live stream to a charity, or by refunding everyone who bought a shirt in that stream, but that's like so many years ago, so I don't know if that's a possibility. Or do a giveaway live stream where everything is given away for free, with no merch sales attached. However, I do also want to note that most YouTubers, including me, didn't know that you could do something like an illegal lottery. So since only the first one was illegal, I feel like it might have been a mistake. I don't know. I can't say that for sure. Just as the question if MrBeast is evil isn't for me to say, but that is again for you, the viewer, to decide. Because there is some shit that he should be criticized for and has to be looked into. I know CoffeeZilla is doing an investigation into his crypto stuff, and once that releases, I hope that clarifies some things. Because those are some serious allegations. And that wasn't of like stupid adolescent Jimmy, 19 years old, and hiring someone without doing background checks. That was like 3 years ago, way more recent, that he should be held accountable for if he did commit crimes with crypto. So yeah, go check CoffeeZilla's video on that once it releases. I couldn't really investigate the crypto stuff because I don't know shit about crypto.
I do appreciate that he makes a point, again, that he's not here just to, be defending MrBeast, and that he should be held accountable for what, at the very least, what Sagi believes are the actual illegal things that he has done. And he points at the crypto stuff that CoffeeZilla's put out, which again, excellent video. One of the more personal big points that I had an issue with in this video was something that Soggy actually ended up cutting out of the video.
This evidence, I think it's definitely fair to say that Jimmy knew about Ava Tyson's behavior.
Dawson, maybe look at the people you're working with. It's not a good look when your friend Cam Nuggets is revealed to be watching minors spread their assholes on Discord.
Now, I think most of you may know that I am friends with Cam Nuggets. We kind of blew up together when we were covering this MrBeast drama stuff. And the message that he mentions, talking about Cam Nuggets watching kids spread their cheeks on Discord, is horribly taken out of context. And clearly, he did not do his research on this point. Cam Nuggets has unfortunately had to defend himself in regard to this multiple times already. But as you can even just see from the message that is clipped here, yo, mods, there's a little kid showing his on calls. Cam Nuggets is on a few different public Discord servers, and this one I believe was called Edgy, and it's pretty much there just so people can talk about, I think, like cyberpunk stuff and join calls and just kind of chat with random people. While he was in one of these voice calls, a kid just randomly joined the call, turned their video on, and showed their cheeks. So this message is him trying to get the attention of a mod to get this person banned off the Discord, to go after DogPack this entire video, talking about, hey, you're not doing your research well enough. You're, framing things in a malicious way. To go off of what seems to be little to no research yourself and make this claim just really comes off looking really bad. What I found particularly bothersome about this fact is that he did end up cutting it from the video, but this is what he had to say about it on Twitter. Clarification on this, I cut it out of my video though because I understand Cam Nuggets' side as well, so no read more needed here. He goes on to say, I'll tag at Cam Nuggets here because I legitimately don't want to cause you any unnecessary panic. I wanted to get a point across of DogPack's hypocrisy, but realized I should have added more context for Cam instead of hyper-focusing on DogPack in that segment. There is no context that you're going to add that's going to reduce any panic, because what you did is made Cam Nuggets look like a pedo. This point that you wanted to get across, that DogPack was being a hypocrite, and the thing that you're trying to defend here makes no sense, because DogPack isn't being a hypocrite because Cam Nuggets is in no way, shape, or form doing what Ava Chris Tyson did. So I don't think there's a way that you could have added more context without destroying the point you were trying to make of DogPack being a hypocrite, because if you added more context, your point would have been invalid. He reiterated this point once more, saying, yeah, he clearly didn't understand what I was implying there, that DogPack404 judges other people not knowing about Ava no matter the context of her messages while he's in contact with people who did similar things. He didn't do similar things. He reported a child that illegally exposed themselves on Discord. I don't know how you define that as a similar thing, and it just seems like quite a large leap to get there. Now, I will reiterate that I'm friends with Cam Nuggets and I watched him go through this, so I clearly have a bias. But from what I've seen based off the evidence that was, shown to me and all the other people he's had to defend himself to, it's not even in the same realm as what Ava did. The last thing that I want to cover is an update that had come out after Soggy's video had come out, which was that Jimmy was sending out the link to the video that Soggy had made to a bunch of huge content creators saying that, hey, they should check out this video and whatnot. One of the people that had come forth talking about getting this message was Pyrocynical.
Now, even though he's in a lot of hot water at the minute, I still wanted to respect the privacy of the DM, so I did ask him beforehand. I said, hey, can I show this on a stream or in a video? And he basically said, I'd prefer if you didn't, but if you felt like it was necessary, then sure, go for it. So you can see the actual DM here. He's saying there's been a lot of disinformation around me these past few months, and I feel like Soggy did a good job hitting a lot of it with facts. Would love if you covered it, heart emoji.
Now, it wasn't just Pyrocynical. The other big one that we've seen is from Dylan Zitkus, who also had made a short talking about it.
So I woke up today, didn't even get out of bed yet, was just sitting there responding to texts, listening to some Travis, and then this notification came through, MrBeast saying hey, and I thought I was tweaking, but I opened up Instagram and sure enough, Jimmy gave me a follow. Bro sent me the link to a video, asked if I'd seen it, which I haven't. And then he asked me to cover it. I was like, bet.
Now, with these content creators being sent it, I'm sure there are plenty more that have been sent it that just aren't, talking about it. Now, personally, at first, I thought that this was a bit suspicious because, Soggy having gone and done those interviews, etc., and working with the employees at the company, I could see more of this, conflict of interests and potentially that they were working together and agreeing with that. I know that sounds a little like, you know, tinfoil hat, but that was just kind of where I was at. I was still a little heated about the Cam Nuggets thing. Well, Sagi ended up making a thread, which I had alluded to earlier, and I wanted to go over that because it really did change my mind and cut that idea out of my head. Sagi starts with, "Hi everyone. There are some things that have come to my attention I found concerning. The one I personally feel most disgusted by being MrBeast DMing my video to creators instead of taking accountability for the very serious allegations he still needs to clear up. He has confirmed done illegal things and showcased scummy behavior he still has to respond to, not just from my video, but also other videos. Most notably, the serious allegations regarding his crypto. If he can DM my video to other people because it's not baseless slander, he can DM CoffeeZilla's video to other creators because it is also not baseless slander. Same thing with his comment he left on my video, which people think is deleted. It's not, it just sank to the depths, probably because it was, rightfully so, bombarded with dislikes. And the tweet says, finally, a video that doesn't spread baseless slander about me, lol. And you can see it right there. He goes on, Coffee's great coverage on his very shady crypto behavior is, again, also not baseless slander, so that comment should be on his video as well if he wanted to take some form of true accountability. The added lol to his comment also shows a disregard for the gravity of the accusations he has to respond to. I'm not just disappointed in the recurring pattern of Jimmy not taking accountability, not just for the past months, but that again is happening right now. I also feel used since it seems he's using my video, which I created to inform people of DogPack404's untrustworthy nature, as well as hold MrBeast accountable for shit he should be held accountable for as a shield. Which I hate, because if there's one good thing that came out of Dogpack's videos, it's that it removed Jimmy's golden boy Boy Scout shield that had been protecting him from criticism for years, a shield that no one should have in the first place. To see my video be commented on and DM'd to other creators by him to potentially build that shield back up just makes me feel disgusted and used. Now, seeing this thread from him, I actually messaged him, but he hasn't replied. I'm a pretty small guy compared to him. But I was asking for an interview, and at the time of recording this, he just hasn't responded yet. But with that thread, it has kind of dismissed any of these ideas that he might have been like, quote unquote, working with MrBeast on this video in a way that would make me feel like he was doing any of this in bad faith. I don't think that's the case. I truly think that he did his research, a lot of which no one else had done before, and made conclusions based off of that research. And again, a lot of the points that he has made, I agree with, and I think that Dogpack screwed up a lot. But as he said, Dogpack was able to remove that golden boy shield that Jimmy had built up for so long, and we have successfully gotten legitimate criticisms out of all of this situation. I still think it was really screwed up for him to include the Cam Nuggets bit, as again, it just had absolutely no utility and didn't prove his point in any way other than if he were to misrepresent what had actually happened. But even with that, I'm not going to deny the legitimate research that he did and proof that he brought to the table in terms of a lot of what Dogpack had brought forth and debunking it. I would like to also hear what you guys think too. At the end of the day, it is up to you guys to make your own decisions based off of what's been presented to you. I have done what I can to go off of what I had seen presented to me over the last few months and make my own assumptions as well alongside you guys. And I've screwed up. I've been wrong multiple times. I'm not afraid to admit that. I just started this out. I'm only going to get better as time goes on, but I'm also only going to continue to make mistakes as I go on. I think the most important thing out of all this is that we recognize and give criticism where it's due, and keep the focus on the company and make sure that they address those very particular and important points, like what CoffeeZilla had brought up, like what has ended up standing past, you know, Sagi's research. And I think for the most part, we have achieved that. The company did fire its CEO and these other, you know, big figureheads in the company based off of the internal investigation that had happened way back that we just got an update about. We are seeing, in my opinion, the most realistic positive outcome from this situation. I never thought that realistically the company could be absolutely just destroyed from this, but I did think that some hiring and firing was for sure going to be going down. If you stayed this far, thank you so much for sticking around, and I just like to see what you guys think in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys later. Adios. Peace. Bye.